And welcome to SportsCage, brought to you, as you just heard, from the good folks at Access Communications. Well, Barney is golfing because he's on holidays because the Riders have a bye week. Dave Thomas is golfing because he's on holidays because the Riders have a bye week. But the man that's always here every Thursday, Sharky, he was wanting to go on holidays, but he's so dedicated, he ended up back here in the studio for SportsCage, didn't you, Sharky?
I would guess my life is probably less exciting than those others that get to go on their holidays in fancy places, as I'm headed to Acadia Valley, Alberta for the weekend.
Well, that's nice. On your sister's
My sister's
40th.
wedding anniversary, 40 years.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Well, I'm
sir.
going as a sympathy thing for my brother-in-law. Poor man, I don't know what he was thinking.
There's rumors that Barney's having this morning had a beverage in a hot tub.
A refreshing beverage in the hot tub. It was a coffee. It was a coffee and something.
Something, yeah, coffee and something.
Hey, you know what?
You got a great show. What's that?
When you're on vacation, why wouldn't you relax in the hot tub with something refreshing? Right? No sense being stressed.
I don't know. It seems like hot water and a hot drink don't mix.
But he's
for
in the
me.
mountains, so it could be a cool morning.
Oh, he's in the mountains.
He's in the mountains,
Oh,
so
I
it could be a
didn't even
cool
know
morning.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, might be refreshing to get in and warm up, you know.
And you're brought to you by some people that know how to do floors, are you?
Yes,
not,
the Flooring Superstore. Yes. Trent Dickin and the boys. They look after you real good. And I have been there. That's not a lie. I've been there. The product selection's off the charts, and the pricing's great. I just got to get the wife to pick a color, so maybe 2028, 2029, we'll get around to that. But yeah, we're working on some flooring options.
Yes. Well, You're being a good husband waiting that long.
Oh.
You have to.
You know what? Here's the thing I'll tell everybody about being a husband. Let her pick what she wants and go with that. Because if you pick what you want, you still have to do what she wants at another point. So there's no sense doing it twice.
So
just
even
do
if
it
it's
once.
purple, just go with it.
Just wait, get what she wants, and then it's done. You don't have to worry about it.
The Riders in Calgary Friday, so I'm assuming
No, we're back here.
We're in Saskatchewan.
We're in Saskatchewan. At least that's what the schedule said when I looked it up.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Because Mark Stevens here. He's my buddy, and I have to meet him for a coffee. Okay, anyway, but they play Calgary Friday night here, and sorry about that. And, of course, they should be, I would think, back in their practice field Monday, and that's when Barney and Dave will be back. Tonight and this afternoon, we have, of course, Rob Vanstone. Off the top of the show, we're going to talk to him in about 30 seconds. Gary Brotzel, right from Curry Field at 3:20. Then we're going to have Arash Madani, who's outstanding and always is, as is Farhan Lalji. He's with us too. We'll hear from Glen Suitor, right from Calgary, as they host the Winnipeg Blue Bombers tonight. Murray McCormick, the retired Leader Post reporter, is going to say bad things about Rob Vanstone.
Probably, yeah.
And
it's what he writes best.
That's right. And Noah Picton's going to talk about touch football in a conversation with Barney later on in the show. So thanks for joining us, Rob. Sharky and I are here. And you've had a very rough few days because, A, you had to punt your old car and look for a new one, and B, your wife is on crutches. You said you only have 15 minutes because you're going from car lot to car lot, we understand. How are you making up? Because we will only go 15 because I know you're under this car pressure.
I'm letting my wife handle negotiations right now, so I'm happy to evade that. So,
What did you get rid of, Rob? Like a 72 Mazda? Like what have you moved on from?
Our beautiful 2010 Cobalt, and it's been an absolutely wonderful car. But it would be in grade 10 now, so it does come a time.
So how many Ks did you get on the Cobalt?
I was in grade 10 for a number of about as long as this car's been in grade 10. So it got up to 191,000 kilometers. It's been an absolutely outstanding car. So we will be tearfully bidding it farewell. When
you said you had a Cobalt, I had to Google it. I had never heard of a Cobalt, so I never didn't know what that
said
was.
Model T. At my age, they'd buy it. So I had a 59 Edsel.
Oh,
Mileage was terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty bad. Now, Rob, we brought you on today to talk about personalities on the Roughriders because in your position, you really get to know the players well. You get to know the coaches well. You get to know the administration well. And I was going to sort of leave it up to you today to talk about some of your, whether they're your favorite people in the organization, players or not, or funnier stories about them, or just interesting stories. So I didn't want to throw a player's name or somebody's name at you because you know better than I who you think is interesting to talk about. So who's the first individual you'd like to shed some light on for us?
Oh my goodness, there's so many that I just have so much admiration for so many people. I love telling a Corey Mace story, and because I think it says a lot about Corey Mace, and it also gives me a chance to mention my dog. The press conference was held on December 1st, 2023 to announce Corey Mace as the head coach, and there's just an absolute deluge of interview requests and just so many people to meet, and everywhere he looks people are shaking hands, welcome to Saskatchewan. I mean, it was just a whirlwind day. And then after tidying up that end of things, he went back to Toronto, and him and Petra began the process of making the move to Regina with Micah and Marina, their kids. So it's probably been 3 or 4 weeks since Corey was hired, and he's back in Regina for a weekend, and I'm at the Mama Weyatan Center covering a community event, and Corey walks in to take part in the community event. And I walked over to him just kind of preparing to reintroduce myself because I thought there's no way he's going to remember even the fact that we chatted, right? I mean, it was just, there was so much that first day. And before I can say, hi, Rob, hi, Corey, I'm Rob. He goes, hey, Rob, how's Candy? He remembered me and he remembered my dog's name. Like that absolutely just stunned me. And I think that says so much about him. I've told that story so many times because I just think it's so cool, and I think it says a lot about Corey.
Well, he's one of the best coaches in Rider history, and I've been around even longer than you, Rob, which is hard to believe. But he handles what's that?
You remember the Dean Griffin years, don't you, Don?
I've heard about him from some of my older buddies, that's for sure. But Corey Mace handles the media so well, doesn't he? I mean, he is just acing the media, if I could say that.
And he just, it is no different just talking to him casually. I mean, he doesn't have a media face and an office face. It's who he is. There's humor, there's congeniality, there's insight, and once the cameras are off, it's almost like an extemporaneous continuation of the scrum, because that's just who he is. And I really appreciate that about him too. It's not like, here's my talking points, here's what I'm going to say, here's my media voice. No, it's just he's Corey Mace at all times and completely genuine. And I really appreciate that and so many other things about him.
Rob, I'm going to maybe challenge you on a particular player, and only because we had him here in the studio for an interview for a whole day. He came and sat through a whole day. Was Jamarcus Hardrick after he was injured and starting his recovery. But you can tell on the field that his enthusiasm and his appreciation of his teammates might be greater than anybody else on the field. The way he's running around, picking guys up, celebrating everything. He's got to be a special guy in that dressing room.
He is just tremendous. And even after he was hurt last year, he continued to be that presence. He wanted to make a point of being around the team. And he's just such a powerful leader and such a tremendous person. He always jokingly refers to himself as being 23 years old. And the way he's playing, I buy it. And he was signed, obviously, principally for the type of player he is. But to have that much, personality and such a presence, I mean, he is, I'm trying to remember, in his last 58 regular season games, he's been on the winning team in 48 of them.
Wow.
That's nicely above 80%. And then he's 7-2 in the playoffs, so that's 55-12 since the last game of the 2019 regular season. So, I mean, that's everywhere he goes, he wins. And I don't think that's an accident.
Well, there's a reason why Tommy Stevens on Sneaks goes right.
Outside.
He goes right. Okay, we've only got, 3 minutes, Curtis? Because I know Rob has to get back to the car lots. Give us another player or coach, or a player this time that you think is interesting for the viewers and listeners.
I mean, this really isn't a very much of a reach. Talking with Trevor Harris is so cool. I really enjoy every interaction with him because he just thinks things through to such a degree that, and is such a technician, and he's got a sense of humor, and it just Trevor Harris just checks every box of somebody you want to know personally and interview it. AJ Allen is absolutely spectacular. I was taking Candy for a walk today and ran into some friends of ours, some friends who usually walk their dog, but they were just a husband and wife going for a walk with their kids, and their daughter told me her favorite player was AJ Allen because she'd met him at a signing and he was so nice to her. And that's what AJ Allen, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just such a tremendous person. I get teased a lot at practice or at work because I always find any reason to talk to Joe Couch. Because Joe Couch is such a tremendous person. And I just, he's just funny and quotable and just a great guy. And I just chat with him just to say hello as much as I do to interview him a lot. He's just one of those people you just feel better being around. I got a message the other day. I got a text message that was really not good news, and I was kind of in a funk. And within 30 seconds of that text message arriving, right before interviews at practice one day, Joe walked over and just came over and shook hands and we chatted. And he had no idea that my stomach had just sank with some bad news. And he cheered me up instantly at a time when I really needed it. And just, he could have walked by and just gone right to the dressing room, but he made a point of saying hi, not knowing that I was just in a bad way at that time. And I made a point of thanking him the next day. I said, you have no idea what kind of mood I was in when you came over and smiled and shook hands. And that's, the same attributes I could tout right across the board from Craig Reynolds on down. I'm just so lucky to be a part of it.
Okay, Rob. Well, thanks a lot. And I think that, number one, you're smart, and I'm going to tell you why. You're letting your wife do the vehicle negotiations. That's very smart.
Don't buy the undercoating. It's a scam. The undercoating's a scam.
Yeah.
She has been known to make mistakes in negotiations because once upon a time she said, "I do." And so
yeah,
that wasn't her most inspired move.
She does have an error in her track record, no doubt about it.
I was there, by the way, the night they met in the crush can. I told Rob to go talk to that very good-looking reporter from Moose Jaw. He listened to me.
Well, that's why you're called the professor.
And it's the smartest thing he ever did.
You're called the professor.
I'm not taking
for a reason.
any credit, actually. But
yeah, you're not going to get any compensation for it either, because I got the car bills now.
Okay,
you're going to
Rob.
split some other costs. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for joining us on such a busy day for you. We really appreciate it. SportsCage returns in just a moment. And it's Don Hewitt back with the SportsCage along with Sharky. Sharky, what do you have in common with a Brazilian soccer player?
Absolutely nothing, to tell you the truth.
That's wrong.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. What do I have in common?
You and Brazilian soccer players only have one name. There's Sharky, and then there's a Brazilian soccer player with one name.
What, are you going Pele? Is that where you're going?
Yeah. So you're the same because you're Sharky. Nobody really knows. There's rumors about your real name.
There are rumors.
There's rumors, but everybody knows the only is Sharky.
They're all to be denied. Yeah. Let's keep it at Sharky.
Okay. Got a text from Rob Vanstone, who we all just saw and listened to. Big news.
Car purchase is complete.
Just bought a car, logging in from a car dealer. I've made a mistake because the car dealer, I don't think, is a SportsCage sponsor.
Can't mention him then. No free plugs.
Yeah. So he did make a mistake.
Without a doubt. Yeah. One of many.
Yeah.
One of many.
Let's go out to Curry Field right now, and the president of the Regina Red Sox baseball team, Gary Brotzel. And Gary, can you have a nicer night for baseball than tonight? Hopefully the clouds stay away, but you've got the Miller Express in. Are they their number one draw because they're from Moose Jaw?
I think they used to be. I think Saskatoon might have moved up into the number one slot. We had... I think July 1st, we had like 1,300 here.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So the Berries, they've only lost, I think, 3 games, Gary.
What's going on up there? Yeah.
Why are they doing so well?
Well, they're playing good baseball. If we look, which we have in great detail at how those games unfolded, we are like literally couple of them 1 or 2 plays away from winning games. But yeah, just a combination of maybe some bad situational hitting and a couple untimely errors, the last couple losses. But yeah, we'll peak at the end this year instead of peaking early and losing out in the first round.
Now that sounds like a good idea. Hey, Sharky?
It does. Brotz, you got, of the remaining games you got over the next month, only 6 are against the West Division, so you really get to challenge the teams in your division to move up in the standings. But you got to leapfrog somebody else before you get to the Berries.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started off with 2 really nice games in Swift Current last night. 9-1, 6-1 in game 2. Probably should have been back-to-back shutouts. So the pitching starting to come. We were hitting the ball, and we've kind of upgraded the defense a little bit. And yeah, we got a couple more additions coming in here shortly.
So tonight against Moose Jaw, what can we expect? What does Moose Jaw bring to the table that the Red Sox got to battle against?
Yeah, we played them just 1 game this year, which is kind of odd. The schedule has we were overloaded against Swift Current. Now we're playing a ton of Saskatoon. Well, we're almost done with them. But now we got 7 games with Moose Jaw. So the first game in Rosswells was just one of those quirky Roswell Park games. Like weird stuff always seems to happen over there.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
I think the wind was blowing out. I mean, the ball flies out of that park to begin with, and I think there was like a 60 wind blowing out. So just one of those nights you make a mistake and you paid for it. But no excuses. We got to win those games, and hopefully the boys come today and play hard.
Now the Miller Express, Miller Express made it to the league final against Okotoks last year. How many players do they have back from that team from a year ago?
Oh boy, you're asking me tough questions. I'm gonna guess 6 or 7, maybe at the most. I think they turned the roster over a fair bit this year.
In terms of your roster, who's been a surprise for you? You've got a lot of guys back, but who's been the surprise out of the new guys that have showed up for the Sox this year?
We got those couple guys from that LSUS team on the back end that have been throw really hard. They just haven't pitched a ton in the last month. So, as they get innings, I see David Hankins and, being really dominant. Nice surprise lately. We just signed a Jacob Steele that has 2 games under his belt. And phenomenal second baseman. Like, we are really in good shape now up the middle with Matthew Fox and Jacob Steele up the middle. The range between those two is just really phenomenal. And then we just brought in the starting center fielder from LSU Shreveport, Ian Montz. Big, strong athlete. Should probably be practicing with the Riders on his days off because he looks like he could be the will linebacker anyway. Big, strong kid. Again, hasn't played since they won end of May, so he's starting to see the ball, and we're expecting big things out of him down the stretch.
Now, you make an interesting point about some of these players that you've got with the Red Sox who look like they could walk in with the Roughriders, and I was watching the Blue Jays and the Yankees last night, and that's what it looks like with so many of these players now. Baseball players, are they not, Gary? They're getting bigger, stronger, more muscular. Like, these dudes are big guys playing baseball nowadays.
Yeah, very big. You look at our roster, we've got maybe a handful, maybe a half a dozen guys that are under 6'3". Like, we are definitely a big team. Not that that's the end all and be all of baseball, but yeah, I had to buy some extra pants this year, some XLs.
Yeah,
those are usually for you and your comrade. I was surprised you got to buy bigger ones for the players. You got 9 guys batting over 300. Like, that's got to be an anomaly to have those kind of stats out of your offense.
Well, last year we actually led the league in offense. I think we had a team batting average of 320-ish, something like that. I believe we're 3rd in the league right now in offense. Believe it, our starting pitching ERA is very good. It's around 3. Back end's good. We've been losing a lot of games in the fifth, sixth, and seventh innings. We're giving up a lot of runs there, but that's what we'll be addressing here in the next 2 weeks.
Well, I know that Daryl Rummel of CTV is doing your PA announcing tonight. Gary, I hope he doesn't bungle that up too much. But it's certainly a beautiful night to the ballpark. Go to the ballpark, and we certainly encourage all baseball fans to head to Curry Field tonight. And thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it, Gary. And SportsCage will continue. You bet. Thank you. And SportsCage will continue in just a moment. And it's Don Hewitt along with Sharky here in the SportsCage. Of course, Barney is golfing and spending time in a hot tub as we speak. And with his family.
It's not a shenanigans vacation. He's got his family along.
And Dave Thomas is golfing too, and he's golfing damn well, I'm predicting. Anyway, on the sports sticker, let's go over the action in the Western Canadian Baseball League, because we just talked about the Regina Red Sox hosting the Moose Jaw Miller Express tonight. First pitch at 7 o'clock, or close to that, at Curry Field. We've got those high-flying Saskatoon Berries there in Moose Jaw to play the Miller Express. And, of course, there you go. The Blades, they bought the Berries, and now they've only lost 3 games this year. And the
you think that's a correlation?
Organization, in some respects, have bought the Red Sox. Their private ownership teams appear to be doing very well.
I think it's the way it's gone throughout most of the league. I don't know if Swift Current and Weyburn are there yet, but I think the rest of the league is. Yeah,
is Moose Jaw Miller Express owned by a person?
I think they're still
this community.
Community owned.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems to be going that way for success as are stadiums and new ballparks in this league. So it's interesting. Anyway, we'll keep going. The Weyburn Beavers are in Saskatoon to play the Berries, and Sharky, the Weyburn Beavers always work hard because they're beavers.
Because they're busy beavers.
Right.
They're cutting down wood all over the place.
What am I talking about here? Anyway,
it's a
there's an 11 a.m. game with the Berries and Moose Jaw. Is that my reading things straight? I don't know, so I better move on. Okotoks is in Swift Current. Medicine Hat, who are ahead of the Red Sox in the standings, are way up in Fort McMurray to play the Giants, and the Energy City Cactus Rats, which I believe is Medicine Hat.
No, it's Edmonton.
Oh, it's Edmonton. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's why Sharky was brought in, to get this straightened out. And they're playing
the straight and narrow.
They're playing the Brooks Bombers, Sharky.
The Brooks Bombers.
Right?
I love that. Edmonton City Cactus Rats.
That's pretty good.
There are no cactuses in Edmonton.
No.
Yeah.
And that's the Medicine Hat Mavericks. I should know that.
Yes. Yeah.
And today's sticker, this sticker in particular, is brought to you by Reliance Heath Water Heater Rentals, keeping you in hot and soft water. Call on Reliance. And Farhan Lalji is up next here. Of course, he's a man of great CFL knowledge.
Vancouver knowledge.
Well, we're going to talk to him about the Lions, because the Lions are one of the more interesting teams in the league as we speak right now. So Farhan is just gluing in as we speak. And I really wanted to start because of we're going to be talking to Glen Suitor from McMahon Stadium later on in the show, but I wanted to start with Farhan to ask him just his general thoughts about the big game in Calgary between the Bombers and the Stampeders. And if Farhan, you can listen to Don and Sharky here. To me, the game in Calgary, and like I said, we'll be talking to Glen Suitor later from Calgary, but the game in Calgary to me seems so big for the Stampeders. In other words, are they for real? Are the Stampeders for real? In other words, can they give Winnipeg a good game? And that's I guess what the big issue is. So is Farhan on there, Curtis? Yeah. I don't know. Did you hear that, Farhan, my question?
I don't think he's there. We get Farhan now?
There we got him.
There we go.
Sorry, Farhan. I'll repeat my question.
Farhan,
Now,
is there no driving and texting rules in BC? Like, you can just do whatever you want?
I'm in the passenger seat.
Okay.
I was just asking Farhan, like the game tonight, Winnipeg and Calgary. It seems to me to be such a big game for the Stampeders. Can they play with the big boys after all the changes they made in the offseason?
Oh no, the car went into a tunnel. Oh, we've lost Farhan. As I'm following along with BC,
okay.
I follow along with BC. They've added some guys to their roster, and remarkably, they've added a quarterback. And I think they are looking at Jeremiah Massola going, that's not the answer. We're going to need to find some more depth at quarterback. The last game, I don't think Massola did him any favors. And I didn't even see, this is a bad thing to say maybe, but I didn't see a great ton of passion in Masoli. And I watched it, I had to record it and watch it afterwards, or PVR'd or whatever the kids are saying these days. But I didn't see a will to win in Masoli. He wanted to, he would have liked to win. He was trying to win, but I didn't see I can do this. We got to fix this. We're going to make this better.
Well, the one thing that Jeremiah Masoli was so good at was just having a strong arm. He could whip that ball from the pocket with the best of them in his prime. Very strong arm, short in stature, but a stocky, muscular, could wing it, and he's lost some of his velocity. He's lost some of the zip on the ball, and you could see that on a few of his outs. And of course, he paid the price when Devon Campbell had the pick six. He didn't get enough zip on the ball, and probably threw it a bit late. So, yeah, I'd have to say that Jeremiah Masoli, I agree with you, Sharky, is likely towards the end of his career, and the big issue is Farhan back. Okay, Farhan, we're just talking about Jeremiah Masoli now. He seems to be on the downslide. No knock on him. A, he hasn't played much since that horrific injury in Saskatchewan, and B, he's gotten older, and he seems to have lost the zip on the ball. What do you think, Farhan?
Yeah, to a point. I'm not sure how much of it was zip versus decision, right? And solely in that situation, right? The Lions, at the start of their training camp, Chase Bryce, who was the incumbent from last year as the backup, looked to be the backup at that point. And then all of the next thing Masoli was ahead of Bryce on the depth chart. Mm-hmm. And I think more than anything, a lot of that came from the fact that Buck Pierce values veterans, and it's a lot like Mike O'Shea, right? I mean, that's a priority. It's always been a priority for O'Shea to really prioritize veterans, and it kind of blew up a little bit. When you play a vet, what you expect is good decision making and not risk taking, right? And if you're Jeremiah Masoli, maybe you've never been a game manager before, but that's what was in that particular Saskatchewan. And, he was efficient moving the ball. Actually, when they got into 10 critical game, the pick was great play by Devon Campbell, all well and good. But you cannot throw to that part of the field late. Just ask Jake Mayer, because he did so much of it in Calgary that cost him his job in Calgary, right? Like, they just couldn't continue with that. And Masoli did that, and you just don't expect a veteran to make those decisions, and he did it twice in one game. So I'm not sure how much of it was velocity or arm talent or whatever. I just think that, he wasn't making veteran decisions, and that's what you want a guy to do in that situation. And I don't think he's going to get the opportunity to do it again for a while, because Chase Bryce is going to back up Nathan Rourke this week. Right,
and it's sort of like going to Mayer that Corey Mace said, whatever you do, Jake, do not turn the ball over. He knew what he did in Calgary. He was there in Calgary with him, and he didn't turn the ball over. He threw for less than 200 yards, but he didn't turn the ball over. Okay, we're going to try to challenge sometimes. We're going to have to try to get back with Farhan. Just having some problems, obviously, with our connection. But getting back to Mayer, I thought he looked pretty happy after the victory over the Lions. He did what they asked him to do. He won the game as well. On top of that, he looked happy. He looked relieved
when you're coming in after and literally 4 weeks of sitting on the bench, and all you're asked to do is manage the game. You're not asked to win the game. You're asked to manage the game. We'll come up with a plan to win the game with you in there. Just manage those expectations. And I thought Jake Mayer did a great job of managing the football, making sure he made good decisions. I thought some passes got dropped or maybe some reads got missed, but Jake Mayer did a good job of what he was supposed to do, which was managing the football game for the Riders. And, he got a great a great game from A.J. Ouellette. He got a great game from his offensive line. Mm-hmm. He got a big game from his secondary, from the defensive secondary. Jake Maier got everything he needed to do to win that football game, and that's where the rest of the team picked up the slack and made sure that they were in the right spot.
Right, and he threw a beautiful pass to Duncan Busby for the touchdown.
Excellent, yeah.
Which is one of the nicer touch passes I've seen.
Yep.
From Jake Maier.
So he still, he could still play. There's no doubt Jake Maier can play, and just right call, right play, right time.
Well, I'd go as far as to say this. I think Jake Maier is more comfortable playing for Corey Mace, than he was for Dave Dickinson. I really think he looked that way to me.
You know, I think as a coach in any sport, you have to have a game plan with the resources that you have. You can't expect your team to be a throwing team if you're on your second and third string receivers and your offensive line maybe isn't strong enough. You got to have a game plan for what you got in front of you. I think Mace and Mueller understand that really well, and they put those game strategies in place to make sure that the guys are going to be successful. It's not their game plan; it's the plan for those players, and that's what I saw out of Mark Mueller's game plan on Saturday.
Well, right now he's looking like a pretty good backup quarterback for Saskatchewan, and I'd have to say, obviously, that it looks like a strong position in the quarterback room as the backup quarterback. When you look at other teams that have really been struggling so far this season with their backup quarterback, Saskatchewan's backup quarterback wins the game. Let's go back to Farhan for edition 3 of Farhan Lalji.
Yeah.
Anyway,
one of these, I hope all 3 are sponsored.
Of course they are. Yeah.
Let's go to Nathan Rourke, Farhan. He's looks like he's on pace, or he's ready to play in Montreal on Saturday night, but I get really nervous when I hear oblique and I hear quarterback. It's scary because of the throwing motion and how it affects the oblique. So what are you seeing in practice? Does he look like he's got his usual zip on the ball at this point?
Yeah, truthfully, he looked great today. And, I saw him last week at practice, and he was... you could tell he was tentative, and they were only allowing him to throw certain balls and not really, pressing things. But today in practice, he took every rep with the first team, and I thought he looked really good. It was different. And, you look at last week, they went through the first 2 days of the practice week, and he split reps with Jeremiah Masoli. And then on day 3, we expected him to do more and ramp it up. And he didn't, right? Like they shut him down. Well, this week he splits practice reps with the first unit. The first 2 days with Chase Bryce, probably a 2/3, 1/3. With Rourke getting the majority of them. And then today he took all of them, and he looked good. Like he was driving the ball in the middle of the field. He threw the ball at one point. Stanley Berryhill, who has missed the last 2 games with a hamstring, is back in the lineup, and he's kind of their speedster. And he overthrew him on a deep ball. Right, so the power was there, and so it was certainly good to see. He doesn't look limited. He said afterwards he didn't want to commit to starting. He said, we'll see how it responds. But Buck Pierce committed to him starting and said, "Yep, he's going to go." So, and just based on what we saw today, there's no reason why he shouldn't go. And I asked him after that, You feel like you're ahead of the game on this injury. And I said, what do you base that on? He says, well, other throwing athletes like Major League Baseball pitchers and things like that have similar injuries, it's a 3 to 5 week injury. And he's at 23 days, so just over 3 weeks. So he feels he's ready. He looked ready. He ran around. He even took short yardage. So who knows, right? I mean, I don't know if Montreal players are going to punch him in the gut or something like that to test his oblique at the bottom of a pile. I have no idea, but he can throw the ball, and he looked pretty good doing it.
Now, your offensive line in BC, only 2 sacks allowed. They seem to be doing their job to protect Nathan Rourke, so that's a good thing. But on the other side of the coin, the Lion defense, they've given up the least passing yards in the CFL at this point. Secondary playing well, but they're on the field the longest. They've been on the field longer than any other defense in the league. So is this just a matter of the offense has to help the defense a bit more, Farhan?
Absolutely. And you look at the last game, I mean, A.J. Ouellette just ran the ball, right? And ran the ball at will. And I think it was 38 minutes time of possession in that game. So, the secret in this league generally to stopping the run is to A, win first down, and B, get a lead and force teams to throw the ball, right? And when you looked at that game, A.J. Ouellette had 12 carries of 6 or more yards in that game, and I think he had 10 of 7 or more yards in that game, and they were spread out throughout the game. It wasn't just late in the game when he was trying to close it out. So I think that, they were winning first down is the point I'm trying to make with Ouellette, and there were other times where, like 2nd and 8 at the 11-yard line, and they're like, you know what? We're just going to run the ball anyway, right? We're not going to put it in Jake Mayer's hands. We're going to run the ball anyway, and they were able to get to the edge. So the Lions needed to do a better job defensively, but offensively they certainly needed some support, right? And it really came down to 2 games. It was this game and then the first game against Winnipeg, where Winnipeg was able to run the ball at will, and BC struggled with that. So, and when a team can run the ball, they're just not going to throw it as much, right? So it inflates your pass stats a little bit. So we'll see what happens this week. They don't have their 2 starting defensive tackles, right, with Hendricks and Tavai out. However, Montreal doesn't run the ball very much. Like, they just don't do it. It's not that they can't. They don't. And when you've got, they rely so much on extended pass game, like horizontal pass game to replace their run game. So throw it to the edges on bubble screens and hit screens and things like that, and try to move the ball that way on first downs. So, we'll see if the Lions can handle that, and we'll see if Montreal just looks at BC and says, you know what, everybody's running them. We're going to force it this time and see what happens. But Montreal might be the tonic because they just haven't run it a lot.
Is Montreal and McLeod Bethel Thompson going, or are they back to Davidson?
It's going to be McLeod Bethel Thompson starting. They're going to be cautious with Davis Alexander because they've got a bye next week, so you kind of get 2 for the price of 1. And Davis Alexander, who, for my money, I picked him before the year started to be the league's MOP. I got a ton of belief in this guy as a player. I think he's a stud. I agree. He needs to move around and run, right? Like, he needs that complete game. You don't want to take one of his weapons away, right? I like, to be truthful, I don't know. Like, Nathan Rourke and McLeod Bethel Thompson, in my opinion, are the 2 best dual-threat quarterbacks in the league, which is not to say Trey Ford isn't the fastest quarterback in the league, but in terms of being able to effectively, consistently move the ball both ways, those 2 guys are elite and at the top of the food chain, right? And Vernon Adams is probably the next one, right? And then after that, Trey Ford's still got to show us something, but those 2 guys can do it. And if I'm Montreal, I try to keep Alexander fully healthy as well and not let the hamstring linger.
Because of technical difficulties, I never got to a question I wanted to ask you about, Farhan, and that is the Calgary Stampeders. This is a big test for them tonight at McMahon Stadium against the Blue Bombers. Are we going to find out tonight whether Calgary is for real, or are they going to flip back to the old Stampeders?
I'm picking Calgary to win. And I'm totally going counterintuitive. I've picked all 4 underdogs, betting underdogs, to win their games this week. And I think, call it a hope bet. I don't know, right? I mean, you look at Winnipeg on paper. That's a pretty tough team, especially with Brady Oliveira coming back into the lineup. But, I like what I'm seeing from Bob Slowick in terms of how he's game planning with those young defenders. We'll see what the linebacking situation looks like with Kyle Wilson. We know that Adam Bighill isn't ready yet.
Yep.
But offensively, Vernon Adams is going to have to find ways to consistently move it and score some touchdowns, throw some touchdowns. So Winnipeg hasn't given many up, but I do think they're running the ball well enough, and I do think they've got an opportunity to move the ball effectively and try to just stay even throughout and not let Winnipeg dictate terms by jumping out to a lead.
Farhan, can I take you off the CFL and take you to the Canucks and their move so far in free agency? Your thoughts, besides being, I'm surprised about Besser. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm surprised that Besser was retained, although I think it's the right contract for the right money.
Yeah, you know what? I think Besser never wanted to leave, right? It's funny, 2 years ago, he had given his agent permission to seek trades, and in the end, when he didn't get traded, he felt it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And he loves this place. The market loves him. He loves the core group of players. So I'm surprised, too. I really did think it had gone really far down the runway and they weren't going to be able to wind it back. But ultimately, Patrick Allvin made a last-minute phone call, and I think some of it was reactive. I think they looked at where they were at in free agency and on the trade market, and they weren't having a lot of luck, and they thought, you know what, we got to keep somebody to score, and let's just circle back to Brock because we know he wants to be here, and so many people out there don't want to be here because the organization isn't well received right now. So, you know, it was a bit of better the devil you know, and I think it was reactive. Like, this just reeks of not really having a strategy. You know what I mean? I think the Canucks even thought Brock Besser was going to go to free agency. But ultimately he took a little bit less. They gave a little bit more on the term, and they were able to make it work. But, look, if I'm a neutral, I look at what the Canucks have done, and what they've done is retain their core. And I don't know that core deserved to be retained collectively. I'm not saying one player was bad or one player was good. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying collectively this core has not done anything to warrant a level of faith. And they got a level of faith, and, you know, here they are bringing the band back together, but the band hasn't been overly successful.
Yeah, that's right.
The band's got no number one hits, is what you're telling me. They got no songs on the charts. The other point I'll make to that is they didn't go out and get anybody else. Like you say, they only brought back their own bodies.
Now, right?
Yeah.
Well, they got Evander Kane, right? And I think they got Evander Kane thinking he could potentially be a replacement for somebody like Brock Besser, and that didn't work itself out. So you circle back, and then you got another winger, and what you needed center ice help, but they realized it was not going to be available to them in free agency. They were striking out, on the trade market, and now they say they're still looking for a second line center. But how? You're right at the cap now, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Kane and Besser deals put you right at the cap, so you're going to have to move out a lot of money to get an upgrade at second-line center. So now they're saying the right things that, we believe Philip Hedl can do it. And, but he's one hit away from being out for another half season. So, I don't know. It's a lot of hope bets for the Canucks right now, if you ask me.
So what would you give Jim Rutherford as a grade right now, Farhan? He was hired by the owner to win hockey games as the head of the hockey organization. What would you give him as a grade right now?
C. And I think if you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said that it's, that it was trending towards being an A, that he decided, okay, fine, you don't want us to rebuild, Francesco Aquilini, we're not going to rebuild, and all of a sudden he got him to a Game 7 of the second round against Edmonton, and everything trended well. But I think they also, underestimated just how ugly the Pettersson-Miller situation was. And once you trade JT Miller, now it's a bit of a disaster, right? Because now you're like, holy cow, how do we go get a center, right? Like, how do we make our forward lines the way they are? And 27 teams in the league are out looking for second-line centers. So I just think the whole thing has been really, really reactive. And, I can say incomplete, but I think I'd be charitable at that point. Right now, this looks like a mess, especially if in 12 months they lose Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
Which I think they will, personally.
It's going to be awfully tough to keep him. Right? It's going to be awfully tough to show them that there's,
one of the reasons
there's
why
a long-term future.
Why they brought the band back, because they do like each other, right? Like the Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, Connor Garland, Thatcher Demko, all these Americans, they do like each other a lot. And if that was the feeling that we keep all of these guys that Quinn really loves, maybe we'll get to keep them. But they got to win some games, right? Like if they don't get into the playoffs this year, and I'm Quinn Hughes, why would you stay? And I think they're taking a glass-half-full approach to it and say, look, we missed the playoffs by a handful of points, and we had so much injury problem, which is true. But, the previous year when they made it, they had insane health. So let's see what happens if they find somewhere in the middle of all that, right? And, whether Pettersson can rewind his career and get back to being the level that he was at, and whether some of their top players can stay healthy this year. We'll see, but it's not an efficiently built roster, right? In a year from now, you got $13 million in goaltending, one of which is injury prone, one of which was signed, at a very small sample size. So it's just not constructed well, as I see it.
I'd actually go, when you talk about Quinn Hughes, I'd go as far as Connor McDavid. I cannot believe he's happy with what's happened the last few weeks in Edmonton. I don't believe it for a second. He even made the comment just a few days ago, I have to do what's best for my family, which I thought was quite an out instead of I really want to re-sign with the Oilers. I'm thinking in a couple of years he's out of Edmonton, Farhan. Am I crazy to say that?
Look, I would be surprised if he signed a max-term contract. I do think Connor McDavid will extend in Edmonton, but I think you're going to see a 4-year deal, right? And that'll keep his options open for a big deal and one more chance to chase a cup while he's still at the height of his superpowers. So, we'll see. Like, being in Edmonton gives them a real opportunity. They've been to, Game 6 and Game 7 in back-to-back seasons of the final, so you can't say that it's not good enough. We know where the flaws are, and it's only going to get harder because now Draisaitl's got the big contract that's kicking in next year, and Evan Bouchard's going to have a new deal. So, and then when McDavid's deal comes in, that's also going to make it hard to add. It's just not going to be easy. But all of that said, I still think he believes in that group, but I just don't think he would be wise or is going to be prepared to bank the entirety of his prime by signing an 8-year deal.
I agree with you, and the reason I don't think he's going to sign an 8-year deal is because of the cap moving. I think like a lot of players are recognizing the cap's going to go up substantially, so why lock in at this number when in 3 or 4 years the number is going to be another $20 million higher per team, and there's going to be a lot more money to play with per organization. That's kind of what I'm watching. Even the Bouchard deal, you could say is written the same way or for the same reason. Mm-hmm. It's only 4 years. There's going to be more room for Bouchard at the back end if he stays in Edmonton or goes somewhere else.
And how much cap space will Edmonton have? They have to pay McDavid more than Draisaitl. How much money, Farhan, are they going to have left to win?
McDavid will be a $16 million player, and there's not going to be much left. There just isn't, right? Like, they need to materially improve in a lot of areas, right? Like, when you look at a team like Florida, they are 3 lines deep. Like, they have 3 really good lines. Mm-hmm. And you can't say that about Edmonton. You can say Edmonton's got 2 really elite players, right? And then every year they're just kind of trying to figure out who might be able to get around it. And it was a tough break for them to lose that. But, and he's going to be there with him for a while. But like I said, it still is a thin roster to me. And it's, but at the end of the day, stars win. It's not like you can turn around to Stan Bowman and say, look, you can't have McDavid and Draisaitl at those numbers. Of course you can. You have to. You got to figure it out.
Right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Farhan. We really appreciate, as usual, your insight. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And this is Don Hewitt back with SportsCage along with Sharky. I'm filling in for Barney, who is on holidays. Of course, don't forget that SportsCage is brought to you by Access Communications, trusted in rural Saskatchewan for internet, television, and also home security. And don't forget that the text line, if you want to text in, because if you do, Curtis will read your text on air. Text line brought to you by Prairie Land Rental and Sales. From skid steers to power tools, anything you need to rent for the summer job is a Prairie Land Rentals. Deal directly with the owner. 600 Albert Street. And Sharky, a big NHL signing. The biggest guy left, I think, Nikolai Ehlers, a former Winnipeg Jet. He goes to Carolina, where most people thought he was going to go. 6 years, $51 million. What do you think of that?
That's a lot of money for Nikolai, for a second-line winger. That's a lot of money for Nikolai Ehlers. But Carolina loves their European forwards.
Yeah,
I don't think they got a guy in the top 6 that originally from North America. So it makes sense that Carolina would take a run at him, but 6 years, 50. Wow.
There's some crazy bad contracts.
That's a big contract for Nikolai. He should have signed that as fast as he could. Yeah.
But it's interesting what Arash and I were talking about yesterday, and in fact, that's where I want to start things with Arash Madani from yesterday, because we want to talk mainly to Arash about the Blue Jays today. But Arash, we were talking yesterday about some of these contracts and what's going on.
It's time to go coast to coast with Arash Madani for Smart Investing Solutions. Be smart with your money. Call Brian Gawley at Smart Investing Solutions, 546-2533.
Man, I did that well. I paused. Then the commercial came on to pay Arash's bills, and then I carried on. That was so smooth. That's professional broadcasting, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway.
That is a veteran. That's a veteran right there, Mr. Hewitt.
That is a non-veteran, unfortunately. But, Arash, we were talking yesterday. We want to talk mainly Blue Jays today, and of course, Sharky's along with us today, Arash. We were talking yesterday, and you sort of made a comment. I literally fell off my chair because I never really realized it at the time. And then when I thought about what you had said, I thought, my Lord, he's right. And I'll go to the OKC Thunder to start with. I thought it was so cool that a small market NBA team built through the draft, I repeat, built through the draft, won the NBA championship and may become a bit of a dynasty. We don't know because they're so young. And then you go over to the NHL and you go, well, can the Winnipeg Jets sign all these outrageous contracts? Well, they just lost Nikolai Ehlers to $51 million and 6 years. But what you said, Arash, yesterday, I said, well, Vegas doesn't seem to be, bringing in good young players to go around these veterans. And then you said they don't have to. They don't have to.
No.
And I thought,
you can spend your way into whatever it is that you want to do. But I also think that it's important to remember that just because you spend the most amount of money doesn't guarantee that you win a championship. Look, last year, the LA Dodgers had the highest payroll in baseball. They win the World Series. You think back a few years ago when Golden State won their last NBA championship, they had by far the biggest payroll in basketball. They're in the luxury tax, etc. But there are also teams, Oklahoma City is one of them. Oklahoma City wasn't a cap team. They didn't need to be because they're so young, because they had so many guys on either entry-level deals or second contracts. I won't get into the vocabulary of it. But ultimately, roster construction is vital in how you're going to be, how you're going to go about it. Now, having all the resources, having all the money is going to help. There's no question. But just because you spend the most it still doesn't guarantee you anything. And I think that's important to remember.
So there's two methods to a championship. Would you agree with that? Like the Vegas and Florida you mentioned yesterday, they could be in the Stanley Cup final again. And then you've got other smaller market NHL teams that can't do that, aren't willing to do it. David Thompson's got lots of money there with the Winnipeg Jets, but he wants to spend only to what the market sort of allows. And so is there two competing forces going at it in pro sports now because of all of this?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I buy what the market allows. I think this is a choice by owners of what they want to do. Look, when you think back to when the Rams beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl, which was I think it was February of 22, 3 and whatever years ago. Mm-hmm. The Rams spent to the air quote cap, but they also cash-wise spent like $70 or $80 million more than the next highest paid team. And you can do that because of the way you do signing bonuses and you kick contracts down the road and all those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
This is a choice that every owner has in what they want to do. I don't know enough about the greater Las Vegas area, but from a population standpoint, from a market size standpoint, I don't think it's that much bigger than Winnipeg and surrounding area.
Well, it's a little over 2 million now, Vegas and area. But anyway.
So, and what's Winnipeg now? About 1 million?
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close. Not quite. But
everything is a choice when it comes to owners. And look, we joked about yesterday, Don. One of the biggest markets in among the two biggest markets in North America, they haven't won anything. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the New York Rangers, the New York Knicks, just because you're a big market, just because you spend a bunch, doesn't guarantee you anything. You know, Miami's a big market. The Dolphins have been stuck in perpetuity of failure forever.
That's true.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to be intelligent in what you're doing, and that's the biggest advantage of all. But the money always helps.
So when you look at what Vegas is doing, and I got no problem with the Marner deal. I mean, Vegas is close. They're close.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So to go and get the leading scorer from another NHL team that was their best player in the playoffs as well for a third line winger, unbelievable deal as far as I'm concerned. Right?
And Sharky, it's not just for a third line winger. They were getting Mitch Marner regardless. They ended up having to part with a third line winger only to avoid tampering charges. That's all that was.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, let's be honest. Mitch Marner was headed to Vegas. Mitch Marner wanted to go to Vegas at the trade deadline. Mitch Marner was talking to Mark Stone and the rest of those guys during the Four Nations face-off to ask, hey, what's life like around there? This was happening.
Yeah.
And what also kind of in this whole discussion is here you have Mitch Marner come in at a time where Alex Petrangelo's like, okay, I'm done. So,
and the Vegas knew that. They knew he was done too.
If you can maneuver and manipulate the system to your advantage, and you have an owner who's willing to write checks, hey man,
pretty simple.
Well,
pretty
the
simple.
number one thing.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Well, that's right. The number one thing it appears, I would think, Arash, that a professional sports team needs is top-notch contract lawyers and cap experts.
You do.
Can you afford the big money for the best contract lawyer in pro sports? It seems like it's becoming so complicated.
But I want to go to the Ehlers deal with you because I think they paid way too much. Second line winger for $8.5 million a year. That's crazy. So
I hear you, Sharky, but also think about it through this lens. I think that we're at a time where the cap is just going to continue to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick Ehlers in 2025 at, would you say, $8 million?
8.5, yeah. Something like that.
And he was making around $5 in Winnipeg. Okay, so $8 million today and $8 million in year 5 and in year 6. What percentage of the cap is it today, and what's the percentage of the cap hit in 2030 and 2031? I think that becomes the interesting point here. This is why I think, and you know me, I'm no Leaf fan, but I think the best value in free agency, and it's a big if because he's got to, if he continues on this trajectory, the Matthew Nyes deal by the Leafs is actually incredible. What that contract is worth today to me is around market value, and in years 3, 4, 5, and 6, under $8 million for that player, to me is legit.
Should be good money.
Should be.
It seems like right now, the way everything's going up, especially in the NFL, sports is recession-proof. It doesn't matter how many people are unemployed or what's going on. If there's a war, these major sports leagues just keep making more and more money, Arash.
Well, Don, so the question is how, and the question is why. There are a lot of things that the pandemic showed us and taught us and revealed to us, but through a sports lens. Never forget this. If you're watching, if you're listening, these leagues, these owners were willing to play games in front of nobody.
Yeah.
They did not do that out of the goodness of their heart. The new TV deal, that the new national NHL deal that my previous employers, bless them, just signed, was $11 billion over 12 years. $11 billion with a B. Like, you think about basketball. Like, as long as I can remember, TNT and Turner were part of the NBA. They're no longer, because Amazon swooped in and wrote a check so big that Warner Brothers Discovery said, we can't compete in this market.
That's right.
So if 5 years ago, in the teeth of COVID, they're willing to pay for bubbles and play in front of nobody, and now the money is getting even, almost doubling or 50% more, this is why when you have revenue sharing and the players get about half of the revenue that comes in, this is the byproduct of it.
Well, there's so much competition. to air these games. I mean, the TV ratings in the United States after the changes they made to the different networks are actually down. But it doesn't matter if the TV ratings are down. The competition is so intense between the streamers and the broadcasters is so intense that even if the ratings are a bit down in the United States, the next contract for television will still be higher. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, all signs point to it. And let's remember this. Everybody talks about how much the players make, okay? And yes, God bless them, they're making a bunch of money. But if this is what the labor is making, then what are the owners walking away with?
Yeah, they signed off on it.
The Los Angeles Lakers just sold for $10 billion. $10 billion. So what do the Cowboys sell for tomorrow? What do the Yankees sell for tomorrow? All of those things. Look, they're talking about $2 billion for expansion fees in the NHL coming up. I mean, it's a pretty lucrative business if you can get if you can get into it.
If you can come up with $10 billion and think you're buying something that's going to make you more money, that's a pretty lucrative operation.
That's pretty lucrative operation.
Let me tell you something. The NHL becoming the first major pro league in North America, going to 34 teams, if that's what happens with Houston and Atlanta, is so absurd. There is no way that there are enough good hockey players in the world.
Doesn't matter, Don.
I know.
Doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter. I'm just griping. I know financially, more millions to the owners. I get it from a business point. But from a fan point of view, there's not enough good hockey players. You look at some of the fourth lines now in the NHL, there's dog players. I don't know what dogs, dogs, but there's not.
Don't say that out loud in their presence, Don.
I definitely wouldn't.
You know what the NHL wants to do after they get to 34? They want to get to 36.
Yeah.
And you know the market they want more than Houston, more than Atlanta. The market they're dead set on getting back into is one of the biggest media markets on the continent, and that is Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, I agree. That's right.
With his cold, dead, bare hands, Gary Bettman, the last thing he will do is sign
he will. You're right.
Another team to get back to Arizona.
That brings me to another question you've brought up, and I know we're running short of time, but
we haven't got to the Blue Jays yet.
We haven't even got to the Blue Jays, which I have to apologize for, but everybody knows they're in first place.
75.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
There's 75 games to go. We got lots of time.
Yeah, lots of time. What's the desire to go back to Atlanta for round 3? Like, where's that coming from that Atlanta is now a hotspot again for expansion?
It's an owner willing to drop $2 billion, an owner that says, I'm going to have myself an arena deal, and you have 32 other owners who are going to get that $2 billion distributed among them, and they're going to cash the check.
So it's
you know what?
It's got nothing to do with reality or fan support or like we go back to where you are. It's just money.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say this right now.
Yeah.
If the NHL goes to 36 teams, the three of us will be playing in the NHL. It'll be that watered down.
Don,
I mean,
Arash will be body checking me in the corners.
I will look. We live in a world now where the NFL is exploring a European division. Like that. That's not a team, not a game. We're talking about practice. Not a team. We're talking about a division. Like there is. And look, we're also now going to be in a world where it's not going to have to be a quote unquote individual owner who's going to own 50%. There's going to be Saudi money. There's going to be hedge funds. There's going to be a lot of people wanting to get into the most exclusive club going, and that's NFL ownership. And they're opening the door to it with everything that they continue to show.
So outside of the NFL, basketball and hockey be number 2 to go to Europe. Who goes first?
I would have to say that the league that would have a foreign expansion first would be the NBA.
Yeah.
But I would tell you this, Sharky, like where the NBA has wanted to go and would have success at the box office and success business-wise, but just can't pull it off logistically, is Asia. Like, the NBA is massive over there. I was fortunate enough to cover the 2023 FIBA World Cup. The Basketball World Cup, where Canada qualified for the Paris Olympics for the first time in forever. So we're in Manila for the knockout stage, and the arena is packed every night, but there's a shopping mall attached to the arena, a 20,000-seat arena. Well, it's not just that there's an NBA store in the mall attached to the arena. It's not just because of this tournament. No. There are 2 NBA stores in Manila, Philippines.
Wow.
There are not 2 NBA stores in New York City. So, it's nuts. So the basketball and the NBA's global appeal, like Klay Thompson's shoe, you can't even really buy it in North America. It's an Asian shoe. What Yao Ming did, what the NBA's kind of outreach and outpost is just massive. And it's not just in Europe. Even with Luka and even with Jokic and even with Wembanyama and everybody else, they're just as popular in Asia, if not more popular in Asia than they are in Europe.
That'd be fun money to put bets on, wouldn't it? Where they go first? Be a long play. It's a long play, but yeah, it'd be good.
Keep it down, Malik Beasley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the baseball one today? The pitcher, by the way?
Ortiz?
No. What do you got?
Luis Ortiz. So he's under investigation. They have found there were 2 irregularities on prop bets where the first pitch, there were suddenly an exorbitant amount of money wagered on the first pitch of the second inning and the first pitch of the third inning being a ball, not a strike, or a hit by pitch. And when Ortiz missed a slider, it's not that he just missed the spot. The ball went to the backstop. So it's just it's just awesome stuff. It's awesome stuff.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. They're cheating, Don. The kids are cheating.
That's nuts. Well, that'll be an interesting story to follow. Now, let's finally get to the Blue Jays. I mean, I've never been.
I still got an Argonaut question.
You got another question? Go
ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Is Kelly going to play?
I don't think so.
Are we in panic mode yet in TO?
Oh, no.
Not enough people care about the Argonauts.
That's it. Yeah, Don said it before I did.
Sadly. But they're getting better.
Look, they didn't have Chad Kelly for the first 9 games last year. They didn't have Chad Kelly for the Grey Cup last year. They ended up winning the championship.
I suppose, yeah, what are they worried about?
All right.
If he comes back, great. Yeah. If not,
I'll tell you this. I think Montreal is the best team in the East, and there's a bigger gap between 1 and 2 than there is between 2 and 3. But Davis Alexander's out too. I just think, look, the Argos are one of those situations. Just be in the hunt in September. You get your quarterback, and you'll be okay. To me, the Argos, their big issue is all the guys they lost on defense. They're not getting to the quarterback. You got to get some pressure on the quarterback, and that's something that Toronto hasn't done.
Okay, now we can go to Blue Jays, Donnie. You got a Blue Jay question?
Well, as Arash knows, if he remembers, I only do this 3 times a year from a year ago. But I've never been a fan of Mark Shapiro or Ross Atkins, ever. And all of a sudden, they're tied with the Yankees after the big win last night. Very exciting ball game. It was like on the edge of your seat. And I'm thinking, what are do these 2 dudes actually have a decent baseball team now? What do you think, Arash?
Well, I can't remember the last time this baseball team has been this hot. Everything has come together. Everything's going their way. I turned it on in the second inning yesterday, and they're up 7-0. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Davis Schneider, who they just demoted to the minor leagues a few weeks ago, had 2 home runs yesterday. Davis Schneider.
Wow.
Yeah.
So everything's coming together. You blow an 8-run lead, it's 9-9, and you end up winning on a pass ball. Like when it's going your way, it's going your way. And everything's going their way right now. And it's been an incredible, electric 3 days, especially against the Yankees, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing I would just say is that there's 76 more games to go.
Lots of runway.
Well, just it's baseball, like it felt like to some people the sky was falling on the 1st of May, and now basically the 1st of July, it's like they can do no wrong. And when you play 162 at some point here, but the key is to keep winning because they all count the same. And at the end of the season, or even, in the dog days of the season, when you're in a slump, when things aren't going well, when you're banged up, all these wins you're getting now give you a little bit of cushion and buffer, which is really important.
Well, George Springer, he's sprung out. He's
found the fun.
He's acting like a kid in the dugout. He's loving it. He's positive. He's excited. What do you think of George Springer?
Yeah, the Grand Slam on Canada Day. That's Springer's on one. It's interesting. This is everything that they wanted him to be when they brought him in back in, when his time with the Astros was up. Last night, I thought the telling part of the game is, it's 9-9. Okay. It's in the 8th inning. Springer takes a walk, then he steals a base, and then he ends up being the winning run that scores. That's just good baseball. That's fundamental baseball that's doing all the little things right. So you can hit all your grand slams on Canada Day, but as our friend John Gibbons would say, when it's nut cutting time, George did all the right things to make sure they win the ball game.
I love that, John. He had some great.
I don't want to be around him when it's nut cutting time. I'm telling you that right now.
I don't know anybody when it's nut cutting time.
Yeah.
Arash, thanks a lot. It was a great segment, and I wish you a very good weekend. You'll be back next week on SportsCage, and SportsCage will continue.
See you, Arash.
See you guys
in just a moment. And Don Hewitt back with SportsCage along with Sharky. And, we're going to go with what...
Wrong hat.
Okay. That's okay.
That's for the next segment.
You're a handsome man with or without a hat,
Thank you,
Sharky.
Don. Thank you.
We're going to go with Arash talking about
No, we're not.
George Springer. We're not? As the clutch performer?
We're not going to use Arash, though.
Well, we won't use him.
No.
Okay, let's just forget it. He's not on the air anymore.
No. But George Springer would be a clutch performer. He would be a clutch performer.
But Arash would give us the seal of approval.
Oh, without a doubt. Arash would have liked George Springer as a clutch performer. Yeah, but you know what? More than one. We could come up with a couple. AJ Ouellette had a great game for the Riders.
I think it was yesterday's, though.
Oh, sorry. I missed yesterday's. No. I was in the pool yesterday at this time. I didn't have it on. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
But yeah, let's go with George Springer, the Grand Slam on Canada Day, and then to boot being the winning run last night with some, as Arash pointed out, some great baseball running on the base path. So yeah, George Springer is our clutch performer for Nick Service. It's haying season. Nick Service is going to be busy.
Yeah.
It's hay season, and Nick sells a lot of haying equipment. So if you need your parts, get to Nick Service.
Absolutely.
I can't believe you don't watch the cage every single day, Sharky.
It just didn't have it on by the pool. It was probably on in the man cave. It wasn't out by I was out by the pool.
Oh, it would have been on in the man cave.
Yeah, it would have been on in the man cave. Just wasn't broadcast out to the pool. So we'll get that fixed. Add another feed out there.
Yeah. I think you know what time it is there.
Yeah,
Sharky.
it's time.
Are you ready?
Go.
It's time.
Play the NASCAR intro.
The SportsCage NASCAR Report, where rubbin' is racing, is brought to you by Croft Electric. 27 years of trusted, reliable home, farm, and commercial service for all your electrical needs. Visit croftelectric.com and on all socials.
Last week in Atlanta, Hotlanta, Chase Elliott gets his first win of the year Also the first win in the NASCAR bracket of the 5 rounds of the bracket. Chase Elliott comes out on top. He had a great race, was in front for lots of it, did a great job hanging on. Atlanta's a big track. It's not for kids. And Chase Elliott did a great job there. As I said, his first of the year, he moves up 3 spots in the standings. William Byron still holds down the top spot in the standings. But Chase Elliott and then Kyle Larson, note that all 3 drivers ranked 1, 2, and 3 drive for Hendricks Motorsports. Drivers 4 and 5 race for Joe Gibbs Racing. They're Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. In the big news was the in-season bracket, and what a great idea NASCAR had, and oh my God, did I fail. Who would have picked Ty Dillon to beat Denny Hamlin? Who would have picked Priest to beat William Byron? And who would have picked Reddick over Larson? They're ahead of me, because my 3 top drivers are out. Christopher Bell also ranked 4th on the one side. He fell to Ricky Stenhouse Jr., so they are out of the bracket. If you're following along in the bracket online, go back and do some repicks, because I guarantee you your guys are gone. This week, we go to Chicago for the road race. As you know, with your road races, different drivers excel at the road race challenge than do on the big ovals. Watch for Brad Keselowski. Chase Elliott's good there. Tyler Reddick's good on the road race. But also, if you're an AJ Allmendinger fan, it is his time, as is Van Gisbergen, the New Zealander. He'll be one of the favorites in the road race in Chicago. And as a bonus, Crofty will be there. Crofty's going to supply photos and feed from the Chicago race. Ooh. So if you're wondering where Danny is this weekend, you can't get a hold of him, he's not answering your emergency call for a generator, start dialing hotels in Chicago. You'll find him at one of those. So there you go. That's our NASCAR report for our good friends at Croft Electric. Thanks, Danny, and enjoy the race on Sunday in Chicago.
I will say this. Sharky, you are 5,000 times better at doing the NASCAR report than I am.
Really?
You actually know what you're talking about.
A little bit.
You have expertise.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would.
I'm a follower. But it's like any sport. If you get into a fantasy league, you'll follow it. Like if somebody put me in a fantasy soccer league, I'd start to pay attention. But nobody's put me in one yet, so I'm good.
And I like the Croft Electric logo because it's simple and clean, unlike many sports logos nowadays. That's a better logo than
fits well on a NASCAR. Fits well on a NASCAR. Yeah,
I bet it does.
It does. Yeah, it looks good.
Well, Curtis says it's time for a break. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And it's Don Hewitt back with SportsCage along with Sharky, and we're going to go right out to McMahon Stadium in Calgary, where Glen Suitor, the best colorman in the business with TSN, is preparing for the big game tonight at McMahon with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in town. And weirdly, I started to think about all the injuries in the CFL. It's sort of like the NFL. The hitting is getting so hard, and it's vicious, most of it legal. And I thought of Glen Suitor in his playing career, because the one thing that he was, very sturdy, solidly built. And, the amount of years that Glen played, he didn't get hurt very often. And Glen, I don't know if you remember your younger self, but you were, in terms of body and physicality, you were a bit of a stud.
Oh, my God.
Well, I don't know how much I owe you guys for all that, but I am definitely buying the next pizza, I'll tell you that much. You know what, guys? I got really lucky playing. Honestly, I really think that it just does come down to being in the wrong place at the wrong time and having, at times. How many times have we seen a player from his own team roll on the back of the legs of a teammate? It's just. I think right place, right time, or wrong place at the wrong time is just bad luck for a lot of these guys that do get hurt. I never missed a game, and that's
okay. There you go.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I'm, of the stats that you look at when you're done playing, that was the one I might be most proud of, and it was partly due to luck for sure. And, you staying in the weight room during the season and doing all those things that, rehabbing and,
Ivan at the time, you guys know Ivan in Saskatchewan, the legend trainer. I mean, without the trainers and equipment staff and people like that, like you just don't have a chance. Those guys are MVPs every year. Ivan was a savior for many of us because he not only worked with us physically to make sure we were ready for game day, but he also worked with us mentally. So you couldn't start feeling sorry for yourself in Ivan's room. Ivan would
he wouldn't allow it.
He would not allow any pouting or feeling sorry. He'd give you a little slap on the leg and say, "Just put some ice on that ankle and let's go."
Yeah. Well, I hope Ivan's not listening right now because I'm going to make a statement about Ivan. Ivan bought a lovely home on a golf course in northwest Regina and then complained that there were golf balls in his backyard.
Well,
I hope he's not listening.
Ivan. Yeah. It was probably my round because I have a bad slice of bread.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting that we talk about injury suits and we got some injured quarterbacks, some coming back, some still out. Alexander in Montreal still out there going with McLeod, Bethel, Thompson. But more importantly, Nathan Rourke coming back, that oblique injury. Are they rushing this? Are they rushing this back too fast?
I don't think they would do that. No, first of all, Buck Pierce, their coach, knows the position, and he knows how important the abductor is in that midsection when it comes to throwing the ball and the torque you need out of that part of your body. So he understands the mechanics of that. They would definitely not do it if, the training staff had any concerns at all. And, clearly they must not. But most importantly, Nathan would be honest. I know Nathan Rourke pretty well. Right. And honestly, I don't think he would put a whole season in jeopardy, or at least, or a 6-game injured list even in jeopardy by rushing back. So he must feel confident. I know during the early part of the week, he was throwing deep balls without any issues. So, in practice. So I think he's ready to go. And it's good. There's two things about these injuries. One is I'm really surprised that the experienced backup quarterbacks didn't really have a good week. I mean, McLeod Bethel Thompson didn't play well. Jeremiah Mazzoli didn't play well. In fact, Mazzoli hasn't played well in 2 games now, replacing Rourke. And those guys should be better. And so I'm a little surprised that the backups haven't played as well as I expected them to. But the good news is that these injuries to the starters has happened early, and we're going to see these guys return real soon.
Glen, you're, of course, as we said, broadcasting the game tonight from McMahon with the Bombers in town. To me, this is a huge game for Calgary. We know what to expect from Winnipeg, but I know Farhan actually was on the show earlier. He's picking Calgary to win. Are we going to find out tonight, Glen, what Calgary is made of this year?
Well, we will over the, I would say the next 4 games. I mean, Dave Dickinson is calling the next 4 games the gauntlet, and he doesn't want his players, obviously, to look past Winnipeg. You can't do that. But they have Winnipeg in Saskatchewan next week, Winnipeg, Montreal. Those are their next 4 games. So they will know at the end of 4 weeks basically what they need to do to improve, where they are really, not even in the standings. I mean, where they are as a football team, and can they be a contender? I think the next 4 weeks is going to tell them that. This is the first, real good test for them. Mm-hmm. And, the Bombers are a machine. You guys know it. And the Bombers are so well balanced, so well coached. And here are the 3 things that they do that I think people kind of, roll their eyes a little bit at, but they don't take penalties. They're again the best team in the league with the fewest penalty yards per game.
Yep.
And they are every year. You go back and look at the last 4 years, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers take the fewest penalties, so they don't beat themselves. They're always in the top 3 in giveaway takeaway. And right now they're at +4 in the top 3 again of the giveaway takeaway department. And they're balanced on offense balanced on defense. So, I think like as far as run stopping and against the pass and running the ball and throwing it on offense. So, I think when you think about those giveaway takeaways and you think about the penalty yards, they don't ever beat themselves, and often teams self-destruct trying to get to them. So they almost start to panic, saying, we're only down by 7, push, and then they get 3 bad penalties, and then they throw an interception, and it's game over. Winnipeg wins another one. So, that's really the important stats. We say it all the time, but giveaway, takeaway, and penalties are going to sink you in a hurry.
Glenn, you have a production meeting to go to, I believe, for tonight's broadcast. We'll be watching you. I'm looking for. I'm going to cook my burger and then watch Glenn.
Actually, before you leave, Glenn, I do have a quick comment. I think your off-season training in Grand Cayman's teaching scuba diving lessons was the reason you had such a healthy CFL career.
You know what? That's a good theory. I don't think my wife will buy it, but that's a really good theory for staying in shape. And tonight, by the way, again, Stampede Bowl, guys.
Yes.
Stampede Bowl. So we'll all be sporting the cowboy look. I can't wait. I'm going in as Bad Bart or whatever.
Yep.
It's the bad and the ugly.
Everything's open. The tents are open. Everything's open tonight, even though it's officially not till tomorrow. Thanks a lot, Glenn. Have a good broadcast tonight. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And we're back with Don Hewitt and Sharky with the ticker. Of course, Extreme Hockey and Sport is helping us do that. And, for the 4th night in a row, the Blue Jays are hosting the Yankees. They're in pregame right now. The Jays have won the first 3. I asked Sharky, can they make it 4 straight?
You know what? It's tough to beat the Yankees 4 straight and at any time. But they have a chance. They've played really well. They've got everything from pitching to hitting, timely base running. I haven't put any money on it, though. I should look at what the odds are for that game tonight. Yeah, maybe we should add that later. But, can they do it? I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. The Yankees are going to take this one back. And I'm sorry for you Blue Jays fans, but I can't see the Yankees getting swept.
Well, Sharky, you have to say it as it is, and that's why they pay the big bucks. That's it.
You've seen a different contract than I have for this particular organization, but yeah.
Maybe it's like mine contract.
Yeah, I picked, I would say the Yankees are going to come back and prevent the sweep.
Okay, thanks, Sharky. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And it's Don Hewitt back with SportsCage along with Sharky. Of course, Barney is on holidays. He will be back in the big chair on Monday. Let's go right out to the great, tremendous Pittsburgh Steelers fan and retired Leader Post sports reporter Murray McCormick. And Murray, you ended your career, your journalism career, with a bang. You were on fire. And I say that because you went to that football foodies segment when you were on the road to the Roughriders. Your food photography was rivaled the Bear, if I can say that, if anybody's watching the Bear. I mean, it was great food photography.
It was.
And your descriptions of the food. And sadly, Sharky, when I would read Murray's columns on the football, I was drawn to the food comments almost more than the football. Like, how did you get that idea, Murray?
There was a fan that once sent me a letter and said he wondered what I did on the road, and I said I kind of eat, sleep, and work. That's all I do. He says, well, maybe people be interested in having some idea of what your life is like on the road. I says, well, the thing I do most consistently is I can talk about food and take pictures of food. So I just kind of started to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think people maybe remember this. I never went to your high-end restaurants. It was always kind of a place where you could go and normal people would go and have fun. And I remember one year when we were on a long road trip when the Riders were they played in Toronto and Ottawa. And a woman, I was talking about all my football foodie stuff. And this woman says, I've been keeping track of every place you've gone because we're going to Ottawa for the Grey Cup, and I want to make sure I hit all these restaurants. that you've been eating at. And unfortunately, I still have the football foodie physique. More than my interest in food. So that's one of the things. But it was a lot of fun. I know, Don, you keep bringing it up. I just thought it was so good. It was
it was
original.
Good.
Yeah, it was just something to do, have some fun, let people know that it wasn't all work and a little bit of play and a few calories along the way. So I guess.
Actually, I just want to tell Sharky this really quickly before he asks you the next question. I was at Dakota Dunes golfing with Murray last year, along with former broadcaster Kevin Waugh and Dale Isaac. And Murray made a bunker shot. I thought I was watching the PGA. It was unbelievable. It went forever. I think it was in an inch of the hole. He was way back. Anyway, go ahead. What's your next question?
For a triple bogey, Murr? Was that for a triple?
I don't think I made the putt.
Yeah. So it was a hell of a golf shot, I'll tell you that.
And it's interesting that Don brought up stuff you did before and the way you wrote, because I always loved reading your columns and whatever you wrote about, whether it was curling or football or whatever the case might be. But as I asked this question, the Riders this year, 4-0, some guys are trying to find flaws in the 4-0 record. Your thoughts on where they're at 4-0 as a sports writer?
Well, if I could, I've been at 4-0 a few times with the Riders through my career, and they've had some good fast starts. Remember last year were they 4-0, Don? You want to help me out with that?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they lost how many in a row? 7 in a row?
Well, of
6
course,
or
when
7,
Trevor Harris got injured, and then when he came back, they went back to winning, sort of thing. They won a few of them.
I have to admit, as a sports writer, a former sports writer, I'm excited about this Rider team. I loved that game last week. I thought it was. I didn't expect Harris to be hurt just 3 games into the season. I knew he would take a while, but I kind of like what they've done. They rest him because they know it's a bye week and he can come back and play this season. Mm-hmm. But I think they have everything you need to be a good, solid contender. Take on Winnipeg. They play Winnipeg, I think, to be every other week. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. But I'm really kind of excited about this. I'm kind of excited about Harris. Ouellette blew me away. I loved how he ran last week. He hits those holes with those steps, and he's going through there. Devon Campbell, we all know Jamal Mazzoli isn't the greatest. He threw that pass, and Devon Campbell just broke on it. And there's nobody in the CFL that's going to catch Devon Campbell. We all know he's the fastest guy.
Nobody.
And that was just, here it is now. And it was just, I remember writing about him when he went down to the States and talking to him and his speed. And the guys in the States just were blown away by his speed. Look at that speed. It's almost like his legs are a blur.
Well, you know what, Murray? I mean, I was right there where I sit. He went right by me. And what was crazy about Devon Campbell, he was jogging down the field, and yet he was going super fast. Like, you look at him, he's not even going full out. That's how fast the dude is.
Yeah.
That's crazy speed.
He's got crazy speed. And I really, some people are looking for flaws. Some guys to me doesn't like the Riders' defense. And I said, what's not to like about their defense? Their secondary is probably the best in the league. Roland Milligan is just an out stud. I love watching him play. Junior Thurman. I'm sorry, I'm not as adept at saying names as I used to be, but I look at the linebackers, I look at the defensive line. That's a team that's full marks for being 4-0, and they can probably go a little longer. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do against Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg is going to be a real challenge. And as I said earlier, fortunately, we'll get to see them play Winnipeg a whole bunch of times, or by I think it's 5 times, 3 times, and it'll be a lot of rivalry stuff. And I'm still going to miss I haven't gone to the Labor Day games because I've been busy with other things, but I'm still going to miss not being at the stadium for the Labor Day games. I just love the Labor Day Classic and all the hype and stuff around it.
If you were to go back and write something now from your previous experience, what would you be writing about now if you were to tell a story about the Riders?
Isn't that a good question? I probably would have been more supportive and more hyped up on Darian Durant than I think we were. I think we were a little more critical of him with the way he left and stuff. I think we could have done a better job of seeing what a great player was and what he meant to that franchise. And maybe I could have. Not that I didn't write some nice pieces about Darren. I still remember when he wrote "We Turned 30." It's still one of my all-time favorite Riders stories, and talking about him being 30 years old and things like that. So probably more supportive. I don't even think supportive, because I'm not supposed to be supportive. Just more about Darian Durant, and maybe made more of a deal about how important he was to this franchise.
And he's a good broadcaster too.
Yeah.
And back to this. Go ahead.
Go.
Well, back to sort of sports journalism. I remember one time, because I thought I'd talk to you about this briefly along with Sharky. I remember one time I had the idea to do a rider player report card. I also befriended players who I then criticized in the report card. And I had some really upset people, and I was going to be a pancake if some of these linemen ever found where I lived. But you did it and I never did it again. You did it for a number of years. So how did you make out on doing a player report card? Because you did it a number of years, and I did it once, and that was it.
I think it's not. I didn't care what the players thought, but that doesn't sound right. I did care, but I just felt part of my job was to be objective. I can tell you a funny story about my first report card. We're flying with the Riders to Calgary to play a playoff game, and I'm sitting there in the middle in this outside seat, and the offensive line coach is reading the report card, and it was I ripped the offensive line pretty hard, saying, and I could just see him looking at me the whole time. I think it was Mike Shepard, might have been. And I'm going, am I going to get off this plane alive? But I always felt, I had to do it. I had to put myself in being objective and say stuff. I also have to admit, I had Rob Vanstone with me too, and he wasn't going to let me get away with saying something that was a little too flowery. He was a great editor. He was always kind of willing to do that. Show your opinion. Don't be afraid. People want to know what you think about the team. And that's what I thought about the team. Because that's kind of how I approached the report card. I still remember the first time. I always made sure I worked the next day after the day the report card was published. Because I wanted if the players want to come up and say something to me, I want to make sure they're available, that I can take that. So I was, and I don't think I really had a player that ever, other than that offensive line coach sitting beside me on the plane. I never really had a lot of people saying things to me about the report cards. I didn't find it. And most of my time, other than the Corey Chamberlain years, they're pretty good. So the report cards are,
people read them for sure.
Yeah, when they're struggling like 2015, the report card. Brendan Tammon didn't disagree with what I had to say about him in 15 when they started off 0-11, I think it was. Something like that.
0-8 for sure. 0-8 for sure. Ammo. Yeah, it was not a good start to the season, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And not a good end for Brendan and Tammon and Corey Chamberlain.
No, it wasn't. Hey, Murray, you've covered more sports probably than anybody in the Saskatchewan area, and by that I mean more variety of sports, right? Whether it was minor sports, minor baseball, university, the Riders, the Pats, everything.
Curling.
And curling, one of the best coverage of curling that anybody got in the Leader Post. As you go back and think about it, favorite all-time events and stories and places, because that's the stuff we want to hear, what you remember the best, and good and bad.
Well, as I earlier said, the Labor Day game was always the best. It used to be, as you kind of find it hard to believe, and it makes it hard to be a sports writer, it gets to be a grind. And you get to that point of the football season in September, and so it starts to mean something. There's a big crowds. I would always go to Mosaic Stadium early, and then you just sort of put it in. So I was excited. I loved covering big curling events. Give me the Briars and the Scotties and World Championships. They just made it. So even at Moose Jaw, when the Worlds were there recently, just being there and stuff. So that was a big one. I was very fortunate. I kind of like to tell this story. I remember once I had to go cover a synchronized swimming meet at the Lawson, and the coach set me up with six-year-old girls to interview about synchronized swimming, and they all had this little chat with me. Oh, you read sports? Oh, my dad reads the sports section. Oh, yeah, I kind of like sports. Oh, yeah. And I'm sitting there with these, and I still look back on that, and I know I have many highlights. I've written great cups. I still remember sitting at the Lawson with these 6 little girls, all trying to tell me their little stories and stuff, and it was such a highlight. But I don't know. to say that what it was a bad thing, right now I can't remember. I was so fortunate. I know people who were listening to me. I never did anything else. I wrote sports my entire life, wrote sports or copy edited sports for 43 years. Mm-hmm. I look back even more. Maybe that's, if I can say, more appreciative of the opportunities I had, what Bob Hughes gave me, what Greg Drinnan did, what Rob Vanstone and Ian Hamilton did, and Daryl Davis and all these, mention all these names in the Leader Post. We were awesome. We were a great newspaper. And I look at them now and I go, oh, we're not so good anymore. But Don remembers the good old days when how many stories have been done.
You guys had so many reporters.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how many stories have been done on you in the 72 series and stuff. Don, it would be, and Sharky. I think I might have known you longer than Don, because I think I first met you with the Cougars back in the day.
Yeah. It would have been, back to the U of R days. Yeah,
that's where I remember 80s. Sharky at the U of R. I just wanted to switch topics here. We had Al Simpson on the show yesterday, Murray, talking about, of course, possible new baseball facility in Regina. Al, of course, will be a part owner, the majority owner, Sean Semple, later this year for the Regina Red Sox. And the P3 program in Canada is a private-public partnership. It's possible that a new ballpark could be built in the rail yards to revitalize the downtown core of the city here in Regina, which is much needed, and there'd be no burden on the taxpayer, versus we're still paying lots of interest and payments on Mosaic Stadium. And it made so much sense to me. What do you think of that whole thing? I mean, it hasn't really got going yet, but what do you think about, do we need a ballpark, and would you support a P3?
Well, maybe I can throw it at you. I've covered baseball at Curry Field. Remember the Regina Cyclones way back then? So I kind of have a little bit of a background in what happened. The Cyclones was a lot of fun. Only thing about the stadium is I absolutely believe they need a new stadium. I don't give it to Gary Brotzel and Burning Eyes of what they managed to get people in there to use that stadium, to go there and visit. What they have the other night? Did they say 700 the other night, or 1,000, 13,000?
1,100. Yeah.
1,100. Like, absolutely, we need a new stadium. But unfortunately, in my world, I've not met anybody who said to me, we need a new baseball stadium, other than the people who go to Red Sox games. So I do think Daryl Davis, we all remember him, had a great column recently on, what it could mean for the downtown Regina to have a stadium. So I think we need it, but I don't know. I just don't see the market being strong enough. And that's nothing against what Gary Brotzel, as I said, the guys have done for the Red Sox. That's an absolutely fun night at the ballpark, but I don't know. It just seems to be, and as you and I talked about, what happens when they stick the first shovel in the ground in the railroad yards and they find all the stuff that might be under those tracks. So,
they know it's there already. It's not a case of when they put the shovel in. They've drilled the holes. They know what's down there. They know where the bodies are. I think Jimmy Hoffa's down there. They actually might have found him. I personally think if we're going to be a city that's going to grow and expand, we need to have those facilities, and we need to have those things that draw people into our community. And a new in that league, if you look around the ballparks in that league, we are at the bottom end of it, and it's about time we caught up. Yeah.
I'm also go ahead, Murray.
Aren't all the Saskatchewan teams at the bottom of it? Basically, other than based on facilities.
Yeah.
The Alberta teams have all made themselves these beautiful stadiums. You look online, you just say, holy smokes.
Alberta's used the P3 to great effect with three new ballparks in that province. I honestly think build it and they will come. That's my opinion, just like the movie. I mean, that's what's happened. I
don't think corn will grow there.
Pardon me?
I don't think corn will grow there.
That's a good point. The soil not too fertile. I want to get to the NFL quickly with Murray, though.
Okay.
Because Murray lives and breathes with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He said he was going to travel when he retired. He's done it. He's gone to, one or two Steelers games since you've retired, Murray?
Oh, just the one, but it was a Monday night game against the Browns, and the defense was outstanding, and it was absolutely amazing. I just felt myself so lucky to be there. I'll tell you, Don, we're supposed to see Bruce Springsteen, and we're going to see the Yankees and the Pirates, and then the Steelers and the Browns. And just as I was getting ready to leave, Bruce Springsteen announced he had stomach issues, so he canceled his concert. So I hated his guts.
Oh, that is so too bad.
Curtis, you should have had the. Oh man, you just missed one. Yeah,
the bong effect.
Yeah.
Now the Steelers, they brought in Aaron Rodgers, and I agree with you. You and I talked about it, as we often do at Boston Pizza on Fridays, that it's not a bad idea at all. Aaron Rodgers is passed. You don't agree? Go ahead, Sharky. You don't?
No, I mean, Murray, I want to hear what you think of this, because like my grandfather was eligible to play. I don't know why they didn't call him to see if he could swing it, right?
They left themselves without any other choice. They let Wilson go. They let Fields go. They Mason Rudolph, whoever he is, whatever he's done. They have no choice. They have no choice. And I think, so I am sort of, because they put themselves in that position, I am 100%, 10% sort of behind, almost cheering for, thinking about Aaron Rodgers. But I don't know. I have a friend of mine.
I think Mike Tomlin can, if he is a little arrogant, Mike Tomlin will knock that out of him, won't he?
Well, I don't think Mike Tomlin can knock it out of him. No.
You don't think so?
No. Go ahead, Murray.
Well, they just traded Minka Fitzpatrick, too, for Jalen Ramsey, who's a great player, but he gets hurt all the time. And I hate to see him coming off an Achilles injury, I think. I'm not one of this kind of things, but I just feel I can say we about the Steelers, kind of. We need a quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy, and I hope he's not nut bar, and I hope he doesn't tear apart the locker room. But I think he's going to be the best opportunity we have to get to the playoffs, and probably the toughest division in the history of organized sports. So,
well, we know one thing: he is a nut bar. Yeah. I have to tell you that, Murray. Number two, but Mike Tomlin is a great leader.
He is.
He's a great leader.
He is. So I will say this: in football, generally, there's a good quarterback shortage. Like I don't care which league you're in. You can go high school through to pros. There is a lack of good quarterbacks all over the place. If not, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have a job.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. I don't disagree. Right. But as I said, and this is what I'm going to say, my same themes are going to get me through this season. We didn't have any choice. This is what they did to themselves, and they got to go with Aaron Rodgers. So yay, Aaron Rodgers.
Well, the Steelers had no choice. I agree with Murray McCormick. However, my co-host is not going with this idea. He's saying he's too old.
He's too old. He's going to be a disaster.
With this enormous controversy, we'll end this.
Thanks for the boo, Curtis. Thanks for the boo.
So thanks for everything there, Murray. Appreciate it. SportsCage.
Can I just... I've got just 1 second to say, I want to send my condolences to Pete Pasco's family. I'm going to try to get through this without being emotional, but he did so much for this community in sports, and I don't think people – sometimes a cable show gets kind of hidden and overlooked, but locker talk and everything, him and Mitchell Blair, and I'm so sad. I'm so – we lost a great person and a great guy, and I think we should all sort of take a moment every now and again to think what he meant from every – because, Sharky, almost every athlete in this city was interviewed in locker talk at one time or the other.
Yep.
From every level, and I think we lost a great guy and lost a good friend, and hope he's resting in peace now because he deserves it.
Nicely done. Thanks, Murray.
Thank you, Murray.
Thank you, guys, for letting me do that.
Yep. SportsCage continues in just a moment. And it's the sports ticker gone along with Sharky. Washington in the major leagues up on Detroit 6-3 top of third. The Yankees, they heard what Sharky said. Sharky said they wouldn't win 4 in a row. 1-0 Toronto. End of 1. But I think Sharky might still be right. It's hard to beat any team 4 in a row. Angels 1-0 over Atlanta. And it's pretty much scoreless after that. What an exciting sports ticker. But what's more exciting is the good folks that... Go ahead.
Red Sox tonight.
Yep.
Red Sox are home tonight.
Miller Express.
Moose Jaw Miller Express. Get there early. Good seats still available.
Yep. And they're drawing well of late. They've had some good crowds.
Yep. Get out there and support our Red Sox. They need
and that's right. And the sports sticker brought to you by Steelcraft Doors, Sharky, right here in Regina. And Sharky,
go ahead.
Made in Western Canada for Western Canada, the good folks at Steelcraft Doors.
Brand new location on Park Street. You can't miss it. Just north of Victoria Avenue.
Oh, I saw that. That's big.
It's big. It's huge.
Wow.
And so if you're looking for a garage door, maybe an upgrade, maybe a replacement, go check out the boys of Steelcraft. They got some good stuff.
Outstanding. Now, I think we've got Brian Raymond will be on deck at some point. And talk
gotta find him.
Well, we're going to talk to him about did they get a nice rain out at Flowing Springs last night?
Yeah.
And B, what he thinks as a very wise Montreal Canadian fan about the Habs picking up Noah Dobson.
Oh, is Brian there? Do we have him yet? You know what?
That means you can talk about Noah Dobson.
I think that move by Montreal to get Noah Dobson and sign him to that defense core. That defense core now is all young. They're talented. They're signed. Like Montreal's done a great. And I'm not a huge Habs fan, although I was in the past. I'm more of a.
Well, what happened?
Washington let me drink out of the big silver bowl.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I got to have a
Ross
sip. Ross let me have a sip out of the big silver.
Was that nice of him?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
what did that feel like?
Oh, you know what? You can't pick it up. Like, if you don't win it, you can't pick it up. I can touch it. I can hold it. I can drink out of it if somebody else picks it up, but I can't pick it up.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
But it's nice that Ross did that.
Oh, yeah, it was very special. And, pretty cool. So, Capitals fan now. But
I don't blame you for when Ross lets you do that.
But I will say this, that Montreal's defense core is very, very well set up. They're up front. Their leadership group, their top six are all young. I mean, Brendan Gallagher is the oldest guy on that team, and he plays with a lot of heart and soul. So I think Montreal's in a really good spot to move up in the standings. I don't think that their goaltending's quite where they want it to be yet. Although there's a chance those guys are going to develop. They're young. Like, there isn't anybody old in the Habs organization. They're all young. So, and this is, to change topics a little bit, this is where I get mad at people being on Stu Skinner. He's 26. He's 26 years old, and he's been in the Stanley Cup final twice. And everybody's like, wow, he's not the goalie. Well, Connor Hellebuck during the Stanley Cup finals was fishing and golfing. So let's put some perspective on who's where and when. And Bobrovsky's 36. So
you think Stuart Skinner can win a Stanley Cup?
He's got a lot of runway in front of him, right? He's got a lot. Bobrovsky was thrown away too. Right? Philadelphia had him. Columbus had him. They didn't think he was the answer.
Here's a question for you,
right?
About Stuart Skinner.
Go on.
Were the Oiler defense good enough in front of him? The answer is no.
No,
they weren't.
Matthias Ekholm was taking tickets as guys were going by. Like, he was like, literally, the goaltender's that way. Carry on. Yeah, straight to the net, Marchand. Go that way. So Matthias Ekholm did not look like a top six defenseman in the National Hockey League. And whether he's still hurt or whatever the case might be, but I don't think their defense was good enough in front of him.
Okay, thanks, Sharky. Sports Cage will continue in just a moment.
Usually this time of day, we bring on Brian Raymond from Flowing Springs. We can't track him down. I don't know whether he's running the beer cart around the course or giving a lesson, but we can't track down Brian. We can tell you, though, the Flowing Springs, easy to book at. You can go to flowingsprings.com, or you can book at 543-5050. They got specials all the time. They got a Twilight, $12, play as long as you can. Once $12 start, super fantastic deal. And if you're looking to just get some practice in, you want to feel better about your game, they hit off grass on their driving range. It's enormous to play from. They got practice greens for target greens for you to shoot at. Their putting green is excellent if you want to practice your putting. There's some tricky holes on that. Trust me, I have never made a putting contest at Flowing Springs work for me. So again, if you're looking for some practice for golf or you're looking for some tee times for the weekend, call out the Flowing Springs at 543-5050, and Brian or one of the staff will hook you up.
Well, thank you very much, Sharky, and well said about the Flowing Springs out there. We're going to have Rob Vanstone coming up in just a minute to talk about some of his favorite Rough Rider personalities. But first, let's go to Barney.
All right, we're talking touch football in Regina here in the Regina Touch Football League. 46th year for the league. It's for adults. As far as females go, they can play at 14 years old and men can start at 16 years. It's a full field. It is awesome. It's not flag, it's touch. Some really stiff competition. Noah Picton is joining me. He plays in the league, former Regina Ram. Noah, thanks so much for doing this for the first part. You're kind of one of the ambassadors of the Regina Touch Football League. When you tell people about touch football, and obviously people might have, a preconceived notion of it, how do you explain it?
I think the first thing I mention is that it's the most similar to tackle football. And what you look at now is that flag football is very popular, and it's great. But then touch football, it reminds me most of when I was playing tackle. It's on a full field. You have the 3 downs to gain 10 yards. And, you can continue marching the full field and gaining those first downs. There's 7 people on the field at once. So it's the most similar to tackle football that you can get. And that's really what I enjoy the most about it. When I'm trying to recruit guys to come play on the team, that's going to sort of my sales pitch is that, you get to catch a football in space, you get to run around, quarterbacks can run. It's just really a really good time. And it's like I said, it's the most similar to tackle football. And that's obviously the form of football that I initially fell in love with. So this really sort of, scratches the itch, if you will, for me.
It's really, and as a quarterback, right? It's a lot like back in the day when you had pads on, though, but like doing skelly.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like it's a 7-on-7. Again, you're running, or on our team or the team that I play on, we're running full field concepts. And, you're reading defenses. The defenses are running coverages similar to what you'd see in tackle football. So it really is, fun from that perspective that there's real routes. You can throw the wide side out. You can throw the corner to the field. You can throw the long developing backside in. Like all of that stuff is in play, and it's a lot of fun from that perspective to get out with guys who, I played with and were on the offense with me on the Rams, and we can sort of talk the same language that we had when we were playing, and it's really just a great game overall.
Yeah, and the one thing that they push too, obviously, you being a former Ram and having those guys out there, but there's all different skill levels that are playing in this league on different teams.
100%. No, they have the multiple different divisions. So whatever the skill level is, like there's a division for you. There's men, there's women's divisions as well. And more than anything is that everybody's out there just having fun, understanding that there are players who played in the CFL, there are guys who played university football, and then there's some people who don't have that sort of experience. But at the same time, it's a really good league in that everybody has a common understanding that, above all, sort of you're out there to get some exercise, have fun, play the game of football. And that's really what I enjoy about it. Nobody takes themselves too seriously. You understand that, above all, it's a rec football league, so you're out there for a good time. But, with that being said, there's some good teams and there's some level of competition that also makes it enjoyable. But it really is a league for any and all skill levels, and obviously, like I said before, male and female divisions.
Noah Picton's on the Western Pizza guest hotline here. We're talking about the Regina Touch Football League. The one thing I really like, Noah, and not everybody liked this. I remember guys on my team. I liked the fact that the league ran from like end of May or beginning of June all the way till October. So yes, there's times where you can't make a game. You coordinate that. I liked that it was a long season, especially when we get into that, September and NFL football and college football's around. I really liked how the schedule was. It was kind of like a longer one.
I couldn't agree more. And, you alluded to it, but you get to the latter part of the season and into playoffs, and the league does a good job that come playoff time, we get to play under the lights, whether that be at Optimus Field or even like the final, we'll play at Mosaic Stadium, but the weather gets a little cooler. It can be, rain, sometimes even snow that you're playing in that. Really, it's fun to play football in that weather, and it just reminds you of playoff football. And it's awesome in that it is, like you said, it's such a long league. If you can't make a game or two, that's fine. You're gonna find, enough games to get to. But like I said, my favorite part is when you get towards, playoffs and you're playing in cold weather games, and it really takes you back to, high school and university when you're in the playoffs and you're playing in bad weather, and that's Saskatchewan football, at its peak.
Perfect. All right. So I'm not crazy that I was one of the only ones that liked that. Noah, thanks so much. Thanks so much for doing this and shedding some light on the league.
Absolutely. No, happy to talk on it anytime, and thanks for having me.
All right, so not to be confused with flag football, this is touch football, like Noah said. 7-on-7, use the whole field. Here's all skill levels, beginner to former pros are playing, men's, women's, and a co-ed division. There are a lot of like dads and sons and mums and daughters playing in the league. That's really cool. You got to be 14 years old if you're a female to play in it, and 15 years old for males. So here's the thing. There's a new session starting mid-July. So individuals, don't be shy, individuals, or you can sign up as a team, enter to play. So all you got to do is go find Regina Touch Football. They're on Instagram, Facebook, or Regina Touch Football's website. All right, so new session starting in July. You get to play in the fall when the NFL's on and the Riders are hopefully into the playoffs. It's like Noah said, it's a great time. So that is a little look behind the Regina Touch Football League here on the Sports Cage, the home of local sports, and 620 CKRM.